Welcome to Bridging the Gap, Law, Therapy, and Justice.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bridging the Gap, Law, Therapy, and Justice with attorney and licensed marriage and family therapist Caitlin Burgess. I'm your host, Sean O'Connor. Caitlin's work blends law, mental health, and forensic insight, helping families and courts navigate emotionally complex situations with structure and clarity. And in today's episode, Caitlin and I are talking about what it means when therapy is court-ordered, how expectations are set, and the boundaries that guide the process. Caitlin, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I'm so good. It's Friday where I am, and so that's not a bad thing.
It's Friday where I am too. What a coincidence. There we go.
We're on the same day part. Court-ordered therapy. Okay, court-ordered therapy. What does it actually mean, and how is it different from therapy a family might choose on their own?
So, court ordered therapy is, as the name suggests, court ordered. So, it's when a court, typically the family court is where I work. So, it's when the family court orders a parent or a child or the family into therapy. I also do work in the criminal court sometimes through the mental health diversion program. So, sometimes a criminal court can order that. And then that defendant goes the mental health diversion track and it helps so there's not traditional criminal prosecution there. And then there's also dependency court sometimes orders of family therapy. I focus my practice primarily on court-ordered therapy in the family course, although sometimes there is an overlap with the criminal and sometimes even the dependency courts. And so voluntary therapy would be as if anyone just wants to go to therapy, if they're maybe having some struggles and they're doing it all on their own. So it's not a mandate from the court.
Question, I've been to therapy, and if I had to go to court-ordered therapy, would those sessions be handled the same way, so to speak, or it would be court-ordered therapy would clearly have like a specific agenda behind it?
So I pretty much structure my individual sessions the same, whether the court has ordered it or the court hasn't. But if it is a court order, I have, some paperwork that's called my addendum, which basically outlines special procedures for court involvement. But it's relatively the same. I structure it the same, typically. So for individual therapy, you come in and you talk about your issues, and although you do have to follow the court orders. So sometimes the court has specific issues they'd like to be addressed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so we're in that. I mean, that is what we're talking about here, obviously. Court orders treatment, and then would there be goals attached to it to guide the process? Is that kind of what happens?
Yeah. So usually there are goals outlined in the court order. Sometimes not, though, Sean. Sometimes it's just court ordered therapy. You have to go to family therapy, for instance, or individual therapy. But often there are specific goals, and then I follow those goals and make sure that my client follows the goals as well. I follow the treatment plan that the court has outlined. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Or are you creating a treatment plan and then getting it approved?
Sometimes that happens, but more often I will get a specific mandate from the court and then I follow the court's mandate, but I can enhance it and modify it as we go along.
That's cool. What about, we're talking families, so we'll talk about parents, right? Parents sometimes enter court-ordered therapy unsure about what participation, is going to look like. What helps set realistic expectations about involvement, communication, pace of progress, that sort of thing?
What sets realistic expectations? Well, let's say we're doing co-parenting counseling. So that's the type of court-ordered therapy I do frequently because when parents are in family court, that generally means there's some high conflict between the parents. Sometimes not, but often it does mean that. And so the mandate would be improve communication, rebuild trust, reach agreements, set reasonable boundaries, have a unified approach to the child or the children. And so we begin at the outset. I talk about my protocols and answer any questions they have and set up guidelines for communication and guidelines for the sessions. So, and it's all also outlined in my informed consent agreements. So, the parents that have very detailed paperwork that explains my process, fees, limits of confidentiality, canceling sessions, termination if that's needed, how to measure progress, that type of thing.
Excellent. Excellent. Let's talk about, I mean, I know, and I speak with a lot of attorneys and family law conversation is can be complex. And I'm thinking about, the phrase best interest of the child. And I'm curious in your own experience if, you have an example that shows how like the structure, your protocol and clear boundaries help move a child or children towards greater stability. Because I've got to imagine, with kids involved, that's got to be a major focus of the court and anybody that's, supporting these folks.
Yeah, so I do offer child and adolescent therapy. So I work with a lot of children in my practice. Probably more than 50% of my practice is children, whether that's in family therapy or individual therapy. But I really, Sean, it's confidential, so I really can't talk about specific instances. But I do find that generally the kids really benefit from individual therapy and family therapy often. And uh, I involve the parents. I can't really breach the child's confidentiality, but the parents can, help by imposing structure and facilitating the therapy. And generally, the kids benefit from it, especially if there's a good alliance between the therapist and the child. Now, that's sort of a magical thing that can happen, right? It's like any relationship. We don't really connect with everybody. So if I'm not connecting with a particular child, or the child, more importantly, if the child is not connecting with me, then we'll find someone else. But generally, the therapy works, because if it's not working and we're not making progress, I'm ethically bound to not continue it and maybe provide a referral elsewhere. Or maybe the child just doesn't want therapy, and I'd let the court know that this just isn't working for this particular child.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, it's situations like that where you're like, oh yeah, kids are people too, right? We're not vibing for whatever reason, and maybe a different there. Maybe they need a man, or maybe they need just some, like just people with different sensitivities and preferences, and especially if it's a young kid, maybe who hasn't been in a therapeutic situation before. I could see that getting comfortable and connected would be a challenge.
Yeah, sometimes, but I honestly, as therapists, we tend to go into this work because we're good at connecting with people. So yeah, generally a client will come into my office and I'll feel good about working with that client, and the client will feel good about working with me. And the other thing too is before working with any child, I will have intake appointments with each of the parents, or even before I get hired or appointed by the court. The parents will want to meet with me, and usually if the parent feels like I'll be a good fit, or if the parents do, right, then I am. So usually it all works out synergistically. So
Love it. Love it. You mentioned confidentiality and, of course, an integral part of the therapeutic relationship. But I'm guessing it's different, right? Confidentiality works differently in cases where it's court ordered versus voluntary therapy, right? And so I'm curious how you explain the limits in a way that keeps everyone, grounded and avoids surprises later on.
actually, most of the court ordered therapy that I am involved in is actually confidential. Some of it isn't. It's sort of a misconception that if the family court orders the therapy, it's all open and everyone gets to find out everything you said. That because therapy, the most important one of the most important things is that the person is revealing confidential, very highly private feelings and thoughts in a confidential setting. So unless the court orders it to be non-confidential, it actually is confidential. Although there are limits to confidentiality, so I'm a mandated reporter. So if there's, a reasonable suspicion of child abuse or neglect, or elder abuse, or abuse of a dependent adult, then I have to file a mandated report. So I do explain that from the outset.
there are times, I'm guessing, when, one parent is, more motivated than the other, to engage in the therapeutic process. And what helps? Like, do you have tricks or just an approach that helps keep the focus on the child when the adults are approaching the therapy from very different starting points? I mean, maybe one parent has had a positive experience with therapy and one has had a negative. It's sometimes cultural even.
True. There's a huge cultural component, especially in the Silicon Valley where I work. Most of my practice is based in the Bay Area, and there's, I don't know where you are sitting right now, Sean, but when I'm sitting in my office in the San Francisco Bay Area, we have a lot of people coming from all over the world. I mean, I have people from the Middle East, from India, from China, from Japan, from Vietnam, North Korea, just to name a few, England, the United Kingdom in general. So yeah, there is a huge cultural component. But that being said, normally they are pretty motivated to be there. The one exception would be often when I'm working with a case where there are parent-child contact problems. So in family, it's called resist refuse dynamics in family law matters, post-separation, post-divorce, where for whatever reason, and there can be myriad reasons or a combination of reasons why a child or children don't want to see one parent. So sometimes when the court orders family therapy in those situations, one of the parents is a bit resistant. Usually it's the parent the children are favoring because they're feeling very protective, perhaps. That's one reason. And so I try to collaborate, provide psycholegal education or psychoeducation, also education about the legal system. So I guess it would be psycholegal education. But if we're just talking about child and adolescent development, over the course of a child's life, the research demonstrates it's beneficial for their long-term development to have generally a relationship with both parents. So I provide that kind of education, try to be very transparent about my process, answer any questions they have. Uh, that's how I go about my work and try to make everyone feel comfortable and motivated.
Yeah, yeah, I could see the parent who's not getting their visits would be, I don't know. I've been there. Defensive. Oh yeah. I have a wonderful daughter, but there was a period of time where, hmm, I don't want to go to dad's. I'm like, oh, okay. We worked it all out, but it was one of those things where, it's a tough thing for a parent uh, to be told that I don't want to come to your house. But that's a whole other podcast, perhaps. Um, it was relatively low conflict situation for sure. I feel lucky about that. Because I know, right, some of these cases involve high conflict, right? And as a therapist, I'm wondering, how do you balance the support of, of course, supporting the child emotionally, but you also have to maintain neutrality and in the legal context. And then you've also got the dynamic we were just talking about, like two different parents with different points of view, and obviously the child's a priority. How do you manage that situation?
High conflict situations and making sure the child's a priority. Um, so I do have, specialized training. My legal background has been hugely helpful because I've practiced family law still. Minimally, I am more focused on the therapeutic side of things, but often people will call me and they'll want some guidance, maybe behind the scenes. And so I do practice family law behind the scenes, generally not attorney of record anymore because I've sort of transferred everything to therapy and forensic work, most of my practice, that is. But we are trained, those of us that do this work, mental health professionals that do this work, we go to conferences. There's a national AFCC conference I'm going to shortly. I'm going to be attending up in Seattle, actually presenting as part of a panel for the Pre-Conference Institute there. But we are trained on these types of dynamics. I run a consult group with other court-involved therapists, and it's all confidential, but we collaborate with each other and bounce ideas back and forth with each other in a confidential manner, which can help. Following guidelines. So my ethics codes are super important to me. The CAMP Code of Ethics. That's the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists Code of Ethics. Very important. The AFCC also has guidelines for court-involved therapists, although they are enhancing and modifying those. If you're a psychologist, you have a whole other set of rules, or not rules, guidelines, APA ethics codes, for example. So following those ethics codes is really critical to my work, Sean. I take those ethics codes very seriously. Where appropriate, some of my work, if I'm doing forensic work as an evaluator, for instance, a child custody evaluator, then there are rules of court. So I take those rules of court that guide that process, of course, seriously. You want to follow them. So yeah, that's how I check for bias and maintain my objectivity.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, impressive training and credentialing, but then also just the lived experience that you've had. You develop facility, and you understand how to navigate all these different dynamics. So that's sort of no replacement for experience in that too.
Yeah, the experience part has been really helpful. They don't teach most of what I've learned here has not been taught in school. I learned a lot practicing family law as attorney of record and advocating in that capacity. And then, of course, I'm going on my 10th year as a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so, you know, the more you do it, I hope the better you get at it. You hope.
Yeah, you hope, right? Yeah. Well, you want to get invited back, back to the court. So, listen, we're coming up on time, and I want to leave. Maybe there's listeners out there, Caitlin, that are, maybe they have a court-ordered therapy situation coming up, right? Their first time with it. What can help them? What would you say to them to help them understand that, the purpose and the process, and to gain some perspective on how it fits into the larger goal, of ensuring the child's well-being? Like, what would you just say? We just have a couple minutes, but how would you assure them?
How would I assure them? Well, that is a important thing for me to be a comfortable place for people. So, I assure them, try to approach this with an open mind, understand the expectations. I have all my various forms that everyone needs to fill out. And so I spend, the first individual session with each parent privately going over the forms, asking them, hey, do you understand this form? Do you understand my telehealth waiver, my no secrets policy, my informed consent? Any questions about my process? Collaborate wherever possible. If I'm providing family therapy, uh, sometimes I say, hey, it might be helpful to have an individual therapist support you through this process. Or if I'm providing child therapy, for instance, and parents are heavily involved in litigation, it's just helpful to seek support where needed. But, also letting them know that I'm not either parent's advocate. Uh, I'm a neutral professional. So, and then following, like I said, my ethical codes and guidelines.
Great stuff. Really enjoyed talking to you, Caitlin. We are unfortunately up against time, but I'm pretty sure we'll talk again in the future, and I look forward to that.
Hopefully, and I'm really glad to hear that you and your daughter work things out. That is super positive.
That's it for today's episode of Bridging the Gap, Law, Therapy, and Justice. To learn more about Caitlin's interdisciplinary clinical, legal, and forensic work, visit her website, caitlinburgess.com. You'll find resources for families, attorneys, and mental health professionals working through complex or high-conflict situations. I'm Sean O'Connor. Thanks for listening. And, as always, leave some thumbs up, leave a review, subscribe, maybe share a link with someone in your world who'd benefit from Caitlin's expertise. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.